She's the only one who makes us proud. Those words sat on my phone like they had weight. Like they were something solid pressing down on my chest while the candle on my 30th birthday cake burned lower and lower in front of me. The comment was from my mother, posted publicly under my sister's Instagram photo. A smiling airport selfie, her suitcase beside her, Paris tagged in the location. Apparently my parents had surprised her with a spontaneous trip. The caption was full of hearts, exclamation points, and excitement. Friends and relatives flooded the comments with congratulations. And right at the top, pinned for everyone to see, was my mom's sentence. I was sitting alone in my apartment in Richmond, Virginia. The cake, a single slice I'd picked up for myself that morning, sat untouched on the counter. No calls. No texts. No card. Just that comment, glowing on my screen like proof of something I'd spent most of my life trying not to believe. My name is Natalie. I turned 30 that day. I worked as a pharmaceutical sales representative. The job paid decently. Not flashy, not luxurious, but stable. I lived alone, paid my own bills, kept my life small and manageable. And for nearly a decade, I'd been quietly trying to earn a place in my own family. I refreshed the post, half hoping I'd misunderstood. Maybe she meant something else. Maybe there was another comment somewhere about me that I hadn't seen yet. There wasn't. This wasn't new. It was familiar in the way old wounds are familiar. My sister had always been the star. The one with the spotlight, the praise, the protection. I was the background character. The reliable one. The one who didn't cause problems and therefore didn't require attention. Growing up, she had the bigger bedroom, the newer clothes, the expensive hobbies. When she struggled in school, my parents paid for tutors without hesitation. When I brought home perfect grades, I got a nod and a reminder to clean my room. When she wanted dance lessons, there were costumes, competitions, front row seats at every recital. When I asked about taking photography classes, my father told me it wasn't practical and suggested I focus on something useful. So I worked evenings at a grocery store and saved for my own used camera instead. They never came to the small gallery show where my photos were displayed. But they never missed one of her performances either. I told myself it was fine. That someone had to be the easy child. That being low maintenance was a good thing. On my birthday, that lie finally collapsed. I picked up my phone and called my mother, giving her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she'd forgotten. It happens, I told myself. People get busy. The phone rang a few times before she answered, her voice distracted. Oh. Hi, Natalie, she said. I'm at the airport with your sister. Can I call you back? It's my birthday, I said. There was a pause. Airport announcements echoed in the background. Oh. Right. Happy birthday, honey. We're about to board. I'll call you later. She hung up. I stared at the cake again, then opened my laptop and logged into the bank account I shared with my parents. The one I'd been contributing to for 6 years. It started when my dad had a health scare. Surgery, medical bills, insurance that barely covered anything. I'd just landed my first real sales job and offered to help. $500 a month. Automatically transferred. No questions asked. It felt like the right thing to do. They never thanked me. Not once. When I mentioned it casually at a family dinner years later, my mom brushed it off like it was nothing. Said they were fine. Said I didn't need to worry. Fine people don't need help. Fine people don't drain a joint account quietly while pretending it doesn't exist. I scrolled through the transaction history, my stomach tightening. Groceries. Utilities. Normal things. Then I saw it. A $4,000 charge to a travel agency. Another for boutique shopping. And then a $10,000 transfer directly into my sister's personal account, marked gift. I felt something snap inside me. 6 years. $500 a month. $36,000. Money I'd given believing it was keeping my parents afloat. Money I'd sacrificed trips, dinners, comfort for. And they'd used it to fund luxury, praise, and a life for my sister that I'd never been allowed to have. I pushed my chair back and stood up, my hands shaking. I thought about every time I'd said no to myself because I couldn't afford it. Every weekend I stayed home. Every purchase I justified away. All while my money paid for her smiles. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I clicked withdraw. It took 3 days to move the money out in small increments. Careful. Quiet. $36,000 back into my own account. I told myself the truth. I wasn't stealing. I was reclaiming. The guilt came later, at night, when the apartment was quiet. When doubt crept in and asked if I was being cruel. If I was overreacting. Then I remembered my mother's words. She's the only one who makes us proud. And the guilt disappeared. I didn't tell anyone what I'd done. Not my coworkers. Not my friends. I moved through my days like nothing had changed, waking up early, driving to work, hitting my numbers, smiling in meetings. But inside, something had shifted. A tension I hadn't realized I was carrying loosened, replaced by something sharper. Awareness. 3 days after the money was gone, my sister called from Paris. I let it ring the first time. Then the second. By the third call, I answered. "You have no idea how beautiful it is here," she said immediately, breathless with excitement. "Mom and Dad are being amazing. We went to the Louvre yesterday, and tonight we're having dinner near the Eiffel Tower." "That sounds nice," I said. My voice surprised me. Flat. Calm. "Are you okay? You sound off." "I'm fine. Just busy." "Well, I wanted to thank you," she continued. "I know you've been helping Mom and Dad financially, and I'm sure that's part of why they could do this for me. So, thank you." I almost laughed. Almost. Instead I said, "Don't worry about it. You're the best big sister ever," she said warmly. I hung up and set my phone down carefully, like it might shatter if I dropped it. The thing was, she wasn't cruel. She wasn't scheming. She was exactly who my parents had raised her to be. Oblivious. Sheltered. Certain the world would always catch her. I remembered being 14, watching her cry over a bad math grade while our parents hovered around her, promising rewards if she tried harder. That same afternoon, I'd come home excited, clutching a camera I'd saved for months to buy. "That's nice," my mom had said without looking up. "Go do your homework." I'd taken the camera to my room. And cried quietly into my pillow, not because I wanted praise, but because I wanted to matter. That memory came back to me as I sat at my kitchen table, the cake now stale and forgotten. I needed to do something with the money. Not impulsively. Not emotionally. I wanted it to mean something. I wasn't interested in revenge. I was interested in reclaiming my life. A few days later, I found the course. Medical billing. Healthcare administration. A 6-month certification program. Something stable. Something I'd always been curious about but never pursued because time and money were always going somewhere else. $8,000 up front. Before, that number would have stopped me cold. This time I enrolled without hesitation. My parents didn't notice the missing money right away. Or if they did, they stayed quiet. 2 weeks passed. Then my dad called. "There's a problem with the account," he said, his tone serious. "A lot of money is missing." I withdrew it. Silence. "You what?" "It was my money. I put it in." I took it back. That money was for emergencies. Emergencies like Paris? Another pause. Longer this time. "That's different," he finally said. "How?" "Your sister needed a break. She's been under a lot of stress." And I haven't? He didn't answer. I gave you money for 6 years, I said, my voice steady now. You never thanked me. You never asked if I needed help. You just took it and gave it to her. That's not fair, he said, but the words lacked conviction. No, I replied. What's not fair is treating me like I don't exist unless you need something. I hung up before he could respond. That night, my mother called. Angry. Accusing. Hurt, but only in the way people get hurt when access is revoked. How could you do this to us? She demanded. We trusted you. You trusted me? I shot back. You've been lying to me for years. We didn't lie. We just didn't think you'd make such a big deal out of it. A big deal? I repeated. That was $36,000. Brooke is going through a lot right now. I waited. When she didn't continue, I said quietly, and I'm not. She didn't answer. Your father and I are very disappointed in you, she finally said. I laughed, a bitter sound that surprised even me. Of course you are, I said. Because I always am. She hung up. I didn't cry. I felt hollow. Like something essential had finally broken free. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the couch, staring at the wall. I expected guilt. Shame. Panic. Instead, I felt relief. Like I'd finally stopped holding my breath. I threw myself into the course. It became my anchor, the thing that kept my mind from drifting back to old conversations and imagined arguments. Twice a week in the evenings, I sat in a classroom filled with people who were rebuilding their lives in their own ways. Some were starting over after layoffs. Some were escaping jobs that had ground them down. Some were there because they finally chose themselves. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel behind. I didn't feel lesser. I felt capable. I studied on weekends at a small coffee shop near my apartment. I memorized codes, learned systems, practiced until it became second nature. The work clicked in a way I hadn't expected. Organized. Logical. Necessary. One afternoon, while I was reviewing material, a woman named Patricia sat down across from me. She was in her 40s, a single mom retraining after her factory job disappeared. You're good at this, she said casually, watching me work through an example. I'm trying, I replied. No, she said. You're good. The words landed heavier than she realized. At work, my coworker Vanessa noticed the shift in me before anyone else. She started inviting me out for coffee during lunch breaks, asking questions I wasn't used to answering honestly. You seem lighter, she said one day. Like you finally stopped carrying something. I told her part of the truth. About the money. About the favoritism. About finally saying no. You did the right thing, she said without hesitation. I keep wondering if I went too far. Standing up for yourself always feels extreme when you've been trained not to. That sentence stayed with me. 3 weeks after my sister returned from Paris, she called again. This time I answered. What's going on? She asked. Mom and Dad are furious. They say you took money out of their account. It was my money. But they needed it. No, I said calmly. They wanted it. There was a pause. Then her voice softened. I didn't know they were using yours. Of course you didn't. I'm sorry, she said quietly. It doesn't change anything. I blocked her number after that. Not out of spite, but because I needed space. I couldn't heal while constantly reopening the wound. A month later, my parents emailed me. They demanded an explanation. Called my actions selfish. Accused me of ruining my sister's trip experience. Asked for the money back. Expected an apology. I stared at the screen for a long time before responding. I told them the truth. That I was done being invisible. That I was done being their safety net. That I wasn't returning a single dollar. I hit send with shaking hands. Something unexpected happened after that. I stopped feeling guilty. Not immediately. Not completely. But enough to notice. The course progressed quickly. I aced every test. My confidence grew quietly, steadily. I wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. I was just building something for myself. One evening, my instructor pulled me aside. "You have real potential," she said. "Have you thought about where you want to take this?" I told her about my interest in hospital administration. About stability. Growth. She smiled. "I might know someone." That night, when I got home, there was an envelope slipped under my door. My parents' handwriting. Inside was a birthday card. 3 months late. And a check for $500. I stared at it for a long time. Then I tore it up and threw it away. I didn't need their money. I didn't need their approval. I needed my life back. The silence after I tore up the check was different from any silence I'd known before. It wasn't heavy. It wasn't accusing. It didn't feel like I was waiting for something bad to happen. It felt final. Like a door closing softly but firmly behind me. For the first time, I wasn't bracing myself for the next phone call from my parents or the next message asking me to smooth things over. I wasn't rehearsing explanations in my head or trying to figure out how to be smaller, easier, more acceptable. I focused on the course. The material got more complex as the weeks went on. Insurance structures, claim denials, compliance rules. It was demanding, but it lit something up inside me. I liked understanding systems. I liked solving problems. I liked that there were clear rules and real outcomes. You did the work correctly, and it mattered. No favoritism. No emotional games. Patricia and I became study partners. We met at the same coffee shop every Saturday morning, spreading our notes across the table, quizzing each other, laughing when we got things wrong. She talked about her kids, about how terrified she'd been to start over in her 40s, about how she used to think it was too late for her. "It's funny," she said once, stirring sugar into her coffee. "I spent years thinking I had to accept whatever life gave me. Turns out, I just hadn't tried changing it." I understood that feeling better than I wanted to admit. At work, things started to shift too. I was still in pharmaceutical sales, still hitting my targets, but I wasn't shrinking anymore. I spoke up more in meetings. I stopped apologizing before asking questions. I stopped volunteering to clean up messes that weren't mine. My manager noticed. "You seem more confident lately," she said one afternoon. "Like you know exactly where you're headed." I smiled, surprised by how true that felt. "I think I finally do." About 2 months into the course, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was my father. "I know you blocked my number," he said. I borrowed a phone. My stomach tightened, but I didn't hang up. "What do you want?" "I want to talk. Not argue. Just talk." I stayed quiet, listening. "Your mother's email was out of line," he continued. I told her that. That surprised me. "But," he added quickly, "you have to understand where we're coming from. That money, we had plans for it." I let out a slow breath. "Plans that didn't include me." "It's not that simple." "It is, Dad. You forgot my birthday. You told the world Brooke was the only one who made you proud. You took my money and never once asked if I was okay." "She needs more support," he said automatically. There it was. The same sentence. The same justification. "And I need less neglect," I replied. Quietly. "I'm not doing this anymore." He sighed. "You've changed." "No," I said. "I've stopped compensating." When I hung up, my hands were shaking, but not from fear. From release. Every time I said the truth out loud, it lost a little of its power over me. Vanessa noticed that day too. "You look like someone who just put something heavy down," she said when we met for coffee after work. "I did," I told her. "I finally did." She smiled. "Good. You've been carrying other people's baggage for years." A week later, my sister showed up at my apartment. I wasn't expecting her. I was carrying groceries up the steps when I saw her sitting there, shoulders hunched, looking smaller than I remembered. "We need to talk," she said softly. "I told you I needed space." "I know," she said quickly. "Just 5 minutes. Please." Against my better judgment, I let her inside. She looked around my apartment like it was unfamiliar territory. It probably was. I'd never invited her before. "I didn't know," she said as soon as the door closed. "About the money. About how much you were giving them." I crossed my arms. "And now you do." "I checked the statements," she said. "I saw everything." That caught my attention. "They lied to me too," she continued. "They told me you were being dramatic. That you were trying to control them. And you believed them." She nodded, tears forming. "I always believed them." There was honesty in that, and it disarmed me more than anger would have. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have noticed. I should have stood up for you." "You didn't know how," I said. "They didn't raise you to." She swallowed hard. "I told them I'm not taking any more money from them until they apologize to you." That surprised me. "And they're furious," she added. "They're furious with me now too." For the first time, I saw her clearly. Not as the golden child, not as the beneficiary of everything I wasn't, but as someone who'd been shaped by the same dysfunction, just from the opposite side. "I don't know what happens next," she said. "But I don't want to be that person anymore." I didn't forgive her that day. But I didn't shut the door either. "Time," I said. "We'll see." After she left, I sat on the couch for a long time, staring at the wall. I realized something important then. Walking away didn't have to mean hatred. It meant boundaries. The course hit its halfway point soon after, and that's when everything changed. My instructor pulled me aside after class. "You're one of the strongest students I've taught in years," she said. "Have you thought about where you'll apply when you finish?" I told her about hospitals. Stability. Growth. She smiled. "I have a contact at Virginia Commonwealth University Health System. They're hiring." My heart skipped. "I'd like to recommend you," she said. That night, I barely slept. When the interview offer came through a week later, I cried. Not because of fear, but because I finally saw a future that didn't revolve around proving my worth to people who refused to see it. The interview itself felt surreal. The hiring manager listened. Asked thoughtful questions. Respected my experience. When she mentioned the salary, my mind went blank. $75,000. I accepted on the spot. When I left the building, I sat in my car and laughed out loud. 6 months earlier, I'd been crying over a cupcake, feeling invisible. Now I was starting a new career, on my terms, with money I'd earned and confidence I'd built myself. My parents called that night. Multiple times. I didn't answer. I went out with Vanessa instead, ordered the most expensive thing on the menu, and didn't feel guilty for a second. For the first time in my life, I wasn't surviving. I was choosing. The days leading up to my start date at the hospital felt unreal, like I was living inside a version of my life that I hadn't been brave enough to imagine before. I gave notice at my pharmaceutical sales job and my manager surprised me by being genuinely happy for me. She hugged me in her office and said, "You earned this. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." I smiled politely, but inside those words echoed louder than she could have known. At night, when the apartment was quiet, I caught myself waiting for the familiar guilt to creep in. The voice that used to say, "You're abandoning your family, you're being selfish, you're making things harder for everyone." But that voice was weaker now. Not gone, just quieter, easier to ignore. 3 days before I was supposed to start at the hospital, my phone lit up with an email from my mother. The subject line was simple. Emergency. My chest tightened instantly. No matter how much distance I created, that word still had power over me. I opened the email. Your father lost his job last week. We're in serious financial trouble. We need that money back. This isn't a request. This is an emergency. We could lose the house. Please call us as soon as you get this. I read it twice. Slowly. Carefully. So this was it. The moment I'd been waiting for without realizing it. The real test. Not the birthday. Not the Instagram comment. Not even the lies about the money. This was the moment where I had to decide if I was truly done, or if I would fold the second fear was applied. I felt sick. They were my parents. The idea of them losing their home made my stomach twist. My instinct, the one carved into me since childhood, screamed to fix it. To help. To sacrifice. I called Vanessa instead. They're saying it's an emergency, I said the moment she answered. Dad lost his job. They could lose the house. She didn't hesitate. Ashley, listen to me very carefully. This is not your responsibility. But what if it's real? Then they deal with it. Like adults. Like people who don't have a hidden safety net anymore. I sank onto the couch. I feel horrible. That's because you were trained to feel horrible anytime you say no. You gave them $36,000. They didn't save it. They didn't budget. They spent it. This is the consequence of their choices, not yours. I closed my eyes. I know you're right. Then act like it, she said gently. You're about to start a new life. Don't let them drag you back into the old one. After we hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. Then I opened my laptop and wrote my response. Mom, I'm sorry to hear about Dad's job, but I can't help you financially. I gave you $36,000 over 6 years, and you chose to spend it on non-emergencies. I have my own life to build now. I suggest you talk to Brooke about helping, since she's the one you prioritized. I wish you luck. I hit send and immediately turned my phone off. I slept better that night than I had in years. 3 days later, I got the call. I'd gotten the job. I cried standing in my kitchen, hands pressed to my mouth, overwhelmed by a feeling that was equal parts relief and disbelief. I'd done it. I'd actually changed my life. I called Patricia first. She screamed so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Then Vanessa. Then, finally, my sister. She showed up at my apartment a week later, unannounced but calmer than the last time. She looked different. Less polished. More real. I'm moving out, she said. I got my own place. That surprised me. I'm going back to school, she continued. And I'm not taking money from them anymore. Not unless they apologize to you. I studied her face, searching for manipulation, for guilt. I didn't see it. Good, I said. That's your choice. Do you think, she hesitated, we could ever actually be sisters? I didn't answer right away. Maybe. But it's going to take time. I know, she said quickly. I'll wait. When she left, I realized something else had shifted. I wasn't angry at her anymore. The anger had always belonged somewhere else. My first week at the hospital was intense and exhilarating. The department was fast-paced, organized, demanding. For once, I wasn't bored or drained. I was engaged. Useful. Respected. My manager noticed quickly. You catch on fast, she said during our end-of-week check-in. You belong here. That sentence lodged itself deep inside me. Meanwhile, my parents spiraled. Emails turned desperate. Voicemails alternated between guilt and anger. Messages about family loyalty, about how children owe their parents, about how I was tearing everything apart. I didn't respond. Instead, I blocked them on social media. The silence that followed was loud at first. Then it became peaceful. 2 weeks into my new job, my mother tagged me in a public post about family values and disappointment. I saw it only because Vanessa texted me a screenshot. Something inside me snapped. I commented. Calmly. Factually. Truthfully. I stated exactly how much money I'd given them. Why I gave it. How they used it. How they treated me. I didn't insult. I didn't exaggerate. I told the truth. Then I logged off and blocked them everywhere. The fallout was immediate. Messages from relatives. Some angry. Some shocked. Some quietly supportive. My aunt called me early the next morning. "I'm proud of you," she said. "I've watched them treat you like this for years." That validation mattered more than I expected. At work, life kept moving forward. My responsibilities expanded. My confidence grew. I stopped flinching when authority figures spoke to me. I trusted my instincts. One afternoon, my manager called me into her office. "There's a new position opening," she said. "Assistant director. I want you to have it." I stared at her, stunned. "Already?" I asked. "You've earned it," she replied. I walked out of that office feeling like I was finally standing in my own life, not borrowing space in someone else's. That night, my father called. I almost didn't answer. Almost. "I got a new job," he said quietly. "It doesn't pay much, but it's something." "That's good," I said. "I wanted to apologize," he continued. "Not because I want anything. Because I was wrong." I pulled my car over and cried. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was truth. And truth was enough for now. When I hung up, I realized something that made me laugh through tears. Taking my money back hadn't destroyed my family. It had exposed it. And in doing so, it had finally set me free. The apology didn't fix everything. I didn't suddenly trust my father again. I didn't rush to rebuild what had been broken over decades. But it changed something important. It shifted the ground just enough for me to stand without constantly bracing myself. I let the silence settle. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't reacting to my parents. I wasn't anticipating their needs or decoding their moods. I wasn't waiting for the next demand disguised as concern. My world shrank in the best possible way. Work became my focus. The hospital moved fast, and I loved it. There was a rhythm to the days, a sense of purpose that didn't depend on anyone's approval. Problems were concrete. Solutions were measurable. Effort mattered. Within weeks, people started coming to me with questions. Not because I volunteered, but because they trusted my answers. That alone felt revolutionary. I caught myself one afternoon walking through the billing department, clipboard in hand, giving instructions without apologizing for my tone or softening my words. Nobody flinched. Nobody resented me. They listened. Later that day, Caroline stopped by my desk. "You're settling in well," she said. "Better than most people at this stage." I smiled. "I finally feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be." She nodded like she understood exactly what I meant. Outside of work, my life reorganized itself quietly. Patricia became a real friend, not just a study partner. We met for dinners, sometimes with her kids, sometimes just the two of us. She talked openly about the guilt she carried as a single mom, about the pressure to be everything for everyone. "You know what I'm learning," she said once as we sat on her porch after dinner. "That being needed all the time isn't the same as being loved." That sentence stayed with me. Vanessa remained my anchor. She never pushed, never judged. She celebrated my wins like they were her own and shut down my self-doubt without hesitation. You don't need to earn peace, she told me one night over wine. You're allowed to have it. My relationship with my sister changed slowly. We started with neutral ground. Lunch once a week. Short texts. No heavy conversations. No rehashing the past. Just two adults learning who the other was without our parents narrating the relationship. She told me about therapy. About how uncomfortable it was to confront the entitlement she'd been raised with. About how ashamed she felt when she realized how much she'd taken without noticing. I don't want to be that person, she said quietly one afternoon. I don't want to hurt people just because I was protected. I believed her. Trust didn't return overnight, but respect did. And that mattered more. My mother stayed silent for a while. Then the emails started again. Not angry this time. Just subtle. Updates about bills. Complaints about downsizing. Casual mentions of how hard things were. Each message ended the same way. With implication. With expectation. I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty. Out of clarity. I wasn't their solution anymore. One evening, I received a message from a cousin I barely knew. She thanked me for speaking up. Told me. She'd always wondered why I was treated differently. Told me watching me finally set boundaries gave her courage to do the same with her own parents. That message hit harder than any apology ever could. I realized then that what I'd done had ripples. Quiet ones, but real. People notice when someone stops accepting mistreatment. 3 months into my new role, Caroline called me into her office again. I want to talk about growth, she said. Not someday. Now. She explained that the hospital was restructuring part of the department. New leadership roles. More responsibility. A path forward. I see you in a management position, she said. If that's something you want. I didn't hesitate. It is. The promotion came quickly. Faster than I expected. With it came a raise that still felt surreal every time I looked at my paycheck. I paid off my credit card in full. I started saving for a house. I booked a weekend trip without calculating guilt. At home one night, I found the old birthday card in a drawer. The one with the torn check pieces I'd kept for reasons I didn't fully understand. I stared at it for a long time, then threw it away. I didn't need proof anymore. My father called occasionally. Short conversations. Updates. No requests. No manipulation. Just information. I'm proud of you, he said once, awkwardly, like the words were unfamiliar in his mouth. I accepted it without letting it rewrite the past. My mother eventually sent an email that wasn't about money. It wasn't a perfect apology. It didn't take full responsibility. But it acknowledged harm. It admitted favoritism. It didn't ask for anything in return. I responded briefly. Kindly. With distance intact. That was enough. Life moved forward. I started mentoring a younger employee at the hospital. She reminded me of myself at 25. Capable. Quiet. Afraid of being too much. I made sure she knew she wasn't invisible. On the anniversary of my 30th birthday, I woke up early and went for a walk before work. The city felt calm. Grounded. Mine. I thought about that cupcake. About the comment that broke something open. About the money that revealed the truth I'd spent years avoiding. Taking it back hadn't been revenge. It had been permission. Permission to stop funding my own neglect. Permission to stop waiting for pride that would never come. Permission to choose myself without apology. I smiled as I walked, realizing something that felt almost unbelievable. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I was free. The freedom didn't arrive all at once. It showed up quietly, in moments I almost missed. In the way my shoulders stopped tightening when my phone rang. In the way I no longer rehearsed conversations in my head before speaking. In the way silence stopped feeling dangerous. I settled into my role at the hospital with a confidence that surprised even me. Meetings no longer felt like something to survive. They felt like spaces where my voice belonged. I contributed ideas without second guessing. I corrected mistakes without apologizing for existing. People listened, not out of politeness, but because what I said carried weight. One afternoon, after presenting a process improvement plan that saved the department thousands of dollars, I caught my reflection in the glass wall of the conference room. I didn't recognize the woman looking back at me, not because she was different, but because she finally looked sure of herself. Outside of work, my life filled in naturally. I bought furniture that felt like me instead of whatever was cheapest. I hosted small dinners without worrying if the house was impressive enough. I laughed more. Real laughter, the kind that doesn't scan the room to see if it's allowed. Vanessa got engaged and asked me to stand beside her at the wedding. Patricia's daughter graduated high school and hugged me like I was family. These moments mattered in a way grand gestures never had. My sister and I found a rhythm. We weren't close in the way movies portray sisters. We didn't share everything. We didn't pretend the past hadn't happened. But we were honest. We respected each other's boundaries. And slowly, trust replaced resentment. She told me once, I didn't realize how much they controlled my life until I watched you step out of theirs. That wasn't an apology. It didn't need to be. It was awareness, and that was enough. My parents remained at a distance. My father tried. He stumbled often, but his efforts felt real. We spoke occasionally, carefully, like two people relearning each other without old roles dictating the conversation. My mother struggled more. She softened, but never fully surrendered control. Sometimes she slipped back into guilt. Sometimes into silence. I know. Longer chased resolution. I accepted what she could give without sacrificing myself to get it. And something surprising happened. Without my money cushioning their choices, they adapted. They sold the big house. Moved into something smaller. Budgeted. Worked. Complained, yes, but survived. The world didn't collapse without my support. The illusion that I was holding everything together finally dissolved. It had never been true. 1 year after that birthday, I threw a party. Not a dramatic one. Just friends, good food, music playing low in the background. People who knew me now, not the version of me who begged for approval. As the candles flickered on the cake, I felt something tighten in my chest. Gratitude, sharp and unexpected. I thought about the girl who sat alone at a kitchen table staring at a cupcake she bought for herself. The woman who refreshed an Instagram post hoping for a different comment. The daughter who believed love had to be earned with sacrifice. She had survived. But she wasn't who I was anymore. Later that night, after everyone left, I sat on the couch in the quiet. The same couch where I once cried after hanging up on my father. Where I once stared at bank statements in disbelief. Where I once felt torn in half by guilt. Now it felt like home. My phone buzzed with a message from my sister. Proud of you. For everything. I smiled and typed back. Proud of me too. That was the difference. I didn't need public praise. I didn't need validation wrapped in conditions. I didn't need someone else's pride to measure my worth. I had built a life where I could breathe. Looking back, I understood something I hadn't before. Taking the money back wasn't cruelty. It wasn't punishment. It wasn't revenge. It was the moment I stopped funding my own erasure. I stopped paying for silence. Stopped investing in relationships that required me to disappear. Stopped believing that love meant depletion. The truth is, some families don't fall apart because someone speaks up. They fall apart because the truth was already there, waiting. I didn't destroy anything. I revealed it. And in doing so, I gave myself something far more valuable than approval or inheritance or praise. I gave myself peace. If there's one thing I know now, it's this. You don't owe loyalty to people who only value you when you're useful. You don't owe silence to protect someone else's comfort. And you don't owe sacrifice to earn a place you should have had from the beginning. Sometimes choosing yourself feels like betrayal. But sometimes it's the bravest, most honest thing you'll ever do. And sometimes, when you finally stop asking to be seen, you realize you were never invisible at all. You were just standing in the wrong place.